The Ferris wheel still turned, slowly creaking against the night breeze, though no one had touched its controls for nearly 50 years. Its lights, broken and pale, flickered in uneven bursts like fireflies lost in the dark. From the cracked ticket booth, a faint song floated through the air, an old carnival tune that shouldn't have been playing anymore. The ground was wet, the air heavy, and the sign above the gate still read, "Welcome to Lune Bay Carnival, fun for the whole family." Though the letters were peeling, the colors faded to gray. Then came the whisper. "Come ride with us." Abigail froze. The voice didn't come from behind her or from the wind. It came from everywhere, soft, childlike, but hollow. Her flashlight flickered just as the carousel behind her began to move on its own. The horses, once colorful and bright, were now chipped and pale. Their glass eyes caught the dim light and reflected it back at her like they were alive. She wanted to run, but her feet wouldn't move. And then, through the fog, she saw shapes, people, but not quite. They stood near the cotton candy stand, glowing faintly in shades of blue and gray, watching her without blinking. One of them, a tall man in a top hat, raised his hand and pointed straight at her. That's when every carnival light, every bulb, every string, flashed on at once. The entire carnival blazed with color and sound. The carousel spun fast, the Ferris wheel roared to life, and the air filled with laughter that didn't sound human anymore. Abigail screamed and the lights went out. Everything went black except for one thing, the flickering neon sign that buzzed faintly above her. The Silent Carnival of Louisiana. And then, something touched her shoulder. Abigail Parker had been chasing ghost stories since she was 16. She ran a small online show called Southern Shadows, where she explored haunted places across Louisiana with her friend Tyler Jenkins. This trip, though, was different. The Silent Carnival wasn't on any map. Locals from the nearby town of Belmar only whispered about it. An old carnival that appeared once every few decades after a thunderstorm, then vanished by morning. Most folks who went there never came back. An old gas station attendant had told them earlier that day. "You'll see the lights flicker from the bayou, but don't go near. It ain't a place for the living." Tyler had laughed it off. "Man, people just make up stories to scare tourists." But Abigail wasn't so sure. They arrived at dusk, after hours of driving through swamp roads. The air smelled of rain and cypress. The moment they stepped out of the car, both of their phones lost signal. The sound of frogs and crickets faded, replaced by the faint hum of something electric in the distance. "Do you hear that?" Abigail whispered. Tyler nodded. "Yeah, sounds like music." They followed the sound through the fog until they saw it. The carnival, standing in the middle of a clearing, perfectly still, lit by flickering bulbs strung across old wooden poles. No one was there. The tents were torn, the rides rusted, but somehow the power was still on. Abigail lifted her camera. "This is it. The Silent Carnival." They walked past the entrance gate, stepping over a broken tickets sign. Every few seconds one of the lights blinked off, then back on like the place was breathing. A gust of wind blew through, carrying the faint smell of popcorn and burnt sugar. Tyler pointed. "Check that out, the Ferris wheel's moving." She turned and he was right. The giant wheel creaked slowly, turning even though no one was inside. "Maybe it's wind," Tyler said, half joking. They kept filming as they moved deeper inside. The carnival booths stood frozen in time, stuffed bears with missing eyes, a cracked shooting gallery, When the lights burst, the shock threw Abigail backward. She hit the ground hard, her ears ringing. For a few seconds she couldn't hear anything, not even the calliope tune that had filled the air moments ago. Only a low hum, like a swarm of bees buried beneath the earth. "Tyler," she shouted, her voice shaky. No reply. Her flashlight flickered, then steadied, casting a pale circle of light across the dirt. The Ferris wheel had stopped moving. The tall man in the top hat was gone. "Tyler," she called again. Still nothing. Her hands trembled as she searched the ground, finding her camera half buried in mud. The screen was cracked but still recording. She played the last few seconds of footage, and saw something that froze her blood. The video showed the moment before the lights went out. Behind her and Tyler, dozens of carnival workers, ghostly figures, were standing perfectly still, their hollow eyes glowing in the dark. But just as the lights burst, they all turned their heads toward the camera, in unison. Then static. "Tyler, where are you?" she cried, spinning in circles. The fog was thick now, and the air carried the faint sound of footsteps. Then came his voice. "Abby?" She turned toward it and saw his silhouette through the haze. Relief washed over her. "Oh, thank God," I thought. But as she got closer, something was wrong. Tyler's posture was off. his head tilted too far to one side, and his movements were jerky, like a puppet being pulled by invisible strings. "Tyler?" she said softly. He turned. His eyes glowed faint blue, and his mouth opened slowly, too wide for a human smile. "They said, we can stay forever." Abigail stumbled back. "Tyler, stop. You're scaring me." He took a step forward, his voice now two-toned, his own voice and another, deeper one layered beneath it. "Don't you hear them, Abby? They want us to join the show." Then just as suddenly as he appeared, he vanished into the fog. Abigail screamed his name again, but all that answered was laughter, dozens of voices echoing from every direction. Children, women, men. The laughter twisted, melting into something darker. She ran, past the carousel, past the game booths, until she reached a row of tents near the edge of the carnival. The largest one had a faded banner across it that read, "House of Wonders, see what shouldn't exist." Her instinct told her to stay away, but the whispers inside called her name again. "Abigail?" Her hand shook as she pulled the flap aside. Inside the air was colder, so cold she could see her breath. Rows of glass jars lined the walls, each containing something floating inside. Small, twisted shapes that looked like dolls, but their eyes were human. She stepped closer, horrified. Some of the jars were cracked, the contents missing. Beneath one jar, a small plaque read, "Recovered from the Bayou, 1932. Suddenly, the calliope music started again, slow, broken notes echoing from nowhere. The light from her flashlight began to flicker, dimming to a weak glow. Then she saw it. In the center of the tent stood a mirror, tall, cracked down the middle, framed in gold. On its surface, faint lights danced, like reflections of the carnival outside. But when she moved, her reflection didn't move with her. It stayed perfectly still. Her heart pounded as she stepped closer. The reflection smiled. Abigail gasped and stumbled backward, tripping over something soft. She looked down, and realized she was sitting on a carnival uniform still filled with bones. The name tag read Eli Parker, Ringmaster. She froze. Parker. That was her last name. Her mind raced. She remembered her grandmother once mentioning a distant relative who vanished in a carnival fire decades ago. A Parker who ran the traveling carnival until it burned down one night in 1932. Could it be this place? Before she could think further, the mirror began to glow brighter. From inside it, faint figures appeared, people in old-fashioned carnival clothes, their faces expressionless. They started to press their hands against the glass from the inside, one by one, fogging the surface. Then one of them stepped through. The mirror rippled like water as a woman in a torn dress emerged, her skin pale as candle wax, her mouth stitched shut. She pointed at Abigail with one trembling hand, and the stitches snapped open. "Welcome home," the woman whispered. Abigail screamed and ran. Abigail opened her eyes to the sound of distant laughter. But this laughter was different, soft, echoing, almost kind. The world around her shimmered like a heat wave, and when her vision cleared, she was standing in the middle of the carnival again. Only now it was alive. The tents were new and colorful, the air filled with the smell of popcorn and roasted peanuts. Music drifted through the night, cheerful and bright. Children ran past her holding cotton candy, couples laughed, and the carousel spun under a golden sky. For a moment she thought it was all just a nightmare. Maybe she had fallen, hit her head, and imagined everything. Maybe this was the real carnival, not the broken one she'd seen. Then she noticed something strange. Every face she saw was smiling, but none of the smiles reached their eyes. The people moved perfectly in rhythm with the music, repeating the same steps, the same laughs, the same words. Like actors stuck in a loop. Abigail took a step back. "Hello? Can anyone hear me?" A woman selling popcorn turned toward her, the smile on her face stretching wider. "Welcome to Lune Bay Carnival, dear. It's a beautiful night, isn't it?" Abigail nodded slowly. "Yeah, I guess it is. Do you know where Tyler is? My friend?" The woman blinked, her head tilting slightly to the side. "Everyone finds what they're looking for here," she said in a sing-song voice. "The carnival gives you what you want most." "What I want most?" Abigail asked. The woman's grin stiffened. "But the lights must stay on. Always on." The popcorn bag in her hand began to shake. Abigail looked down and gasped. The popcorn wasn't popcorn at all. It was ash, soft gray flakes that crumbled and fell through the woman's fingers like dust. The woman looked at her own hands and began to laugh, a hollow, broken sound that echoed across the entire fairground. Then, one by one, the other carnival goers stopped what they were doing and turned to face Abigail, their smiles fading into blank stares. The music slowed. The air grew heavy again. And Abigail realized she was back in that carnival, the Silent Carnival. The bright tents darkened, the Ferris wheel stopped mid-spin, and the children vanished into mist. The once cheerful music turned distorted, warping into that same broken tune that had haunted her since the beginning. "Tyler!" she yelled, panic rising. "Tyler, where are you?" A faint voice answered from behind the funhouse mirrors. "Abby, in here?" She ran toward the sound, pushing through a cracked wooden door. Inside, rows of mirrors stretched endlessly, reflecting her image 1,000 times. The smell of damp wood and smoke filled the air. "Tyler?" she whispered. "I'm here," his voice said again, but it echoed from everywhere at once. "I can see you, Abby." She turned in circles, seeing dozens of reflections, but in every single one, her reflection was slightly different. Some were smiling when she wasn't. Others stood still while she moved. One version of herself pressed its hand against the glass, eyes wide in terror. Then from behind her came a whisper, low and close to her ear. "Do you really want to find him?" Abigail spun around and came face to face with the tall man in the top hat again. His smile was wider now, his eyes glowing faintly gold. "Where is he?" she demanded. The man's voice, the sound of applause echoed faintly as Abigail's body disappeared into the mirror, her reflection sealing over the surface like rippling water that slowly calmed into still glass. For a moment there was nothing. No sound, no light, just silence. Then a faint hum began to grow around her, like the buzzing of dying light bulbs. The air shimmered, and Abigail found herself standing inside the mirror world of the carnival. Everything was reversed, the rides, the tents, even the moon. It was all backwards, twisted, and lifeless. Her clothes were different now, a crimson jacket trimmed with gold, a black vest, tall boots. A ringmaster's outfit. She touched her reflection in a nearby shard of broken glass and gasped when she saw the faint glow in her own eyes. "No," she whispered. "This isn't real. This can't be real." But the ground beneath her began to pulse, and the same haunting calliope tune played again, slower, deeper, more mournful. She looked up to see rows of figures standing on the other side of the mirror wall, watching her. They were the trapped souls of the carnival, ghosts of the workers, the performers, and the visitors who had vanished over the decades. Their faces pressed against the glass, mouths moving in silence. Abigail stepped closer. "Can you hear me?" she asked. One of them, a young boy holding a balloon, lifted his hand and pressed it against the glass. The balloon in his hand flickered, glowing faintly, then burst into smoke. Suddenly, the tall man in the top hat appeared behind her again. "You see, Abigail, you've taken your rightful place. The carnival survives because it must. Every soul here keeps the lights alive, but every few generations, a new Parker must lead the show." "I'm not leading anything," she shouted. "I'm leaving." He smiled softly, tilting his head. "Oh, my dear, no one ever leaves the Silent Carnival. You can walk as far as you want, but all roads lead back here." He gestured toward the horizon. In the distance, Abigail saw what looked like the edge of the world, a curved wall of fog. Beyond it, faint glimpses of her real world shimmered. She could see her car, the trees, the highway, so close she could almost touch it. She started to run toward it. The ground cracked beneath her feet. The lights overhead began to strobe wildly, switching between bright and dark. The laughter of unseen children filled the air again. "Abby!" a voice screamed from behind her. She turned, it was Tyler. But he wasn't glowing anymore. His eyes were clear, his voice human. He was running toward her, waving frantically. "We have to go. I found a way out." "Tyler!" she cried, sprinting toward him. He grabbed her hand, his grip warm, real. "We need to find the generator room," he said quickly. "That's what keeps the carnival alive. If we shut it down, everything stops. The lights, the music, all of it." "Then we'll end it," Abigail said. "For good." They ran through the mirror world together, past the reverse tents and the spinning rides that now moved backward. The generator room was underneath the Ferris wheel, a massive old-fashioned control hub filled with gears, wires, and glass tubes glowing red and blue. Abigail